Have you ever wondered whether the problems in the world today would exist if we had deeper connection to ourselves, others, and the environment and acted from that place?
Welcome to the Conscious Action Podcast with your hosts Brian Berneman and Kayla Greenville, who believe that connection is the key to taking conscious action as individuals and creating a better world.
We are here to raise awareness and inspire meaningful action by sharing stories, knowledge, and conversations with thought leaders and change makers.
From sustainability to well-being and everything related to conscious living, our mission is to empower you to be the change that you want to see in the world. Welcome everyone to a new episode of the Conscious Action Podcast. I am Brian Berneman, your host, and I have the pleasure for this episode to be joined by Melissa Vranjes, that is an amazing human being. I know just a little bit about Melissa, and I'm hoping to learn way more alongside all of you. So first of all, Melissa, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us. And as I always do with all of our guests, I'm going to ask you to please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Brian. It's an absolute pleasure being here. And, I said this beforehand, but just honoring that this is the first podcast being interviewed by a male on this topic. So I'm so excited to be here. And who am I? So who am I? I don't want to come on with any fancy titles or things like that, but essentially I am a feminine wellbeing educator and I'm a holistic sexuality coach. And I've really dedicated the last 4 years traveling the world, learning about feminine empowerment, learning various practices and modalities so that I can bring the most exquisite education to women so that they can embody their power, their menstrual cycles and their sexual selves. And I've been doing this out in public for the last 2 years, but really my journey has been for about 4 years now. And my passion really is to help women step into their power so that they can recreate or reclaim their relationship to themselves through fertility awareness, the menstrual cycle, and holistic sexual wellness.
Beautiful. Once again, thank you so much for being here. And as you said, I find this so interesting, the fact that there is so much misinformation and so much lack of knowledge around this topic for women, but also for men. And this is something that, as I was talking with you the other time, that this is something that how much easier there would be if we all understood that this is the reality. This is something that is happening to everyone. Everyone is either a woman or not a woman. It's how are we going to be able to raise awareness of these topics? And before we get into a little bit of that, I wonder if you can share what led you to actually want to know more and to go deeper in this topic.
So it all kind of started this conscious awareness within. So it was this first yoga teacher training that I did 5 years ago. It is the cliche story that I did a yoga teacher training and it changed my life. But it brought more awareness into my body, just in the mental and physical and spiritual capacity as well. And then a year after that, I went to Bali to kind of find answers to know if I was in the right relationship or not. And as the universe does it, I came back with something completely different. And I went to this workshop called Understanding Sex. And, I was in Ubud at the time, and I don't know if you've ever been there, but, it's rich with this kind of information. And I was a little bit timid, and I thought no one's going to know that I go to this workshop. No one knows that I'm even here doing this. So I'm just going to go, be curious me, and just see what it's about. And what I said before is like the biggest light bulb flicked on for me in this workshop. And it was understanding sensuality. It was understanding sexual wellness. It was understanding diversity in your vulva appearance. It was understanding how to reclaim yourself as a woman that is empowering. And it was breast massage, like all these things that I was like, what the hell is going on? And given, I didn't know any women there, so it was great. And I was just very shy and just going, whoa, where am I? What am I doing right now? But yet there was this deep inner knowing that was like, holy crap, this is amazing. And I left that workshop. This was 4 years ago now. I left that workshop thinking, hang on, if I am quite an open-minded, curious person, and I went to a workshop like this and started learning about this stuff, and yet I didn't know any of this information about my body, or even knew like what sensuality was, like authentic sensuality. How many other women don't know this about their bodies? The ones who maybe can't afford to go to Bali and like have this experience, or who don't even know what this work means. And so I've been on this massive like research learning rampage where I'm like, I need to know everything about my body and I need to know it now. And so, yeah, I just went AWOL and just read. I kept, as I said at the beginning, traveling around the world and learning these different modalities and teachings and finding these incredible teachers to learn from. And then I just kept getting more enriched by this information and started sharing it on my Instagram 2 years ago now. I created an Instagram for this. And at the start, people were like, Mel, what are you doing? What are you sharing? And I was like, oh crap, maybe I'm gone too far. Maybe this is an Ubud thing. But between that, there were a few threads of women saying, oh my gosh, I never knew this about my body. That's crazy. And that kept the fire going. Like, I was just like, yes, need to know more. So that's what kind of tipped me into this and learning more about that. And previously, I grew up with a mother where I ate organic food when we were younger. Like, we were the weird family that went to organic supermarkets. We wouldn't tell people that we went to those weird supermarkets. So I've been brought up in a really conscious environment. So yeah.
So interesting. I find it amazing, like what you're saying. And, we all go through our own journeys, but I find this incredible because this was part of my experience as well, getting into reconnecting with my body, reconnecting with my feelings. And I know, and for me, it's the same. Like, one of the main reasons why I started actually facilitating and working with all of this is because if that I was like fortunate enough to being brought up in the family that I was brought up, and being able to actually go and experience all of this, if that was all new stuff for me, and I'm like, whoa, like, like there's feelings in my body and this means this, and like this body part does that. If I didn't know that, then how many people know about it? And I think that, that's such an amazing and inspirational thing to do, to be able to see that, as you were saying, like you said that if I didn't know that, now wanting to enable others to know it. And I'm curious, when you're doing this work, how much do you see that there's a barrier because these topics are quite taboo and are things that we don't talk about?
Yeah, look, I would say every day I face that. And even within myself, it's like, yes, it's trying to talk to an audience where I visualize it and I'm like, right, there's people like in my paddock who are like, yes, tell me all the news. And then there's people like behind the fence just going, oh, it's a bit weird, but I'm kind of curious. And then there's other people that just don't even want a bar of it. but it's trying to talk to your tribe, to your curious people and the people who are peering over the fence, and talk to them in a language that's encouraging and that's really organic and authentic. Like, I'm no guru in this. That's like, we're going to go real deep into this taboo topic. It's like, how can we keep it as real as possible? And yeah, the barrier is there. The barrier is something that you can't change. Well, or you can, just by being really authentic, going, I totally get it. I was there as well. And talking in a language that's also fun and playful. Like, it doesn't have to be serious. Like, you don't have to talk about pleasure. It's like, you must reclaim your pleasure. It's like, you can have fun and keep playing with this as well. So yeah, it's challenging at times, but keeping it light, fun, and playful is where it's at.
Awesome. Yeah, that's so good. A lot of times I resonate with that, because as well, when I'm doing my work, and this is based on me learning from my teachers, they were always like super joyful and happy and fun, and that was one of the things that, like, even with Tibetan Buddhism, that like when I've shared that, I think that people, like, a lot of times when I mentioned that I lived in a retreat center and stuff like that, they picture me sitting the entire day on meditation and being like super serious about life. And it's like, actually, it's that fun element, is that being able to explore and be curious and open-minded and open-hearted, and being like, okay, like that's worth living.
Agree. Yeah. And that's what got me on this journey, right? Just being curious and open-minded. So you speak to those people. You don't speak to the people where this is disgusting, or it's like, gross, don't talk about it. Like, it's no point even trying to talk to those people. So yeah.
And when you shared from like female well-being, what are the main pillars in terms of this? Is this like reconnecting with the body, understanding, like women, especially, I mean, and this is one of the topics that I want to delve into, like the cycles, like such an importance with that, because all women go through that. And it's a topic that there's not that much knowledge about.
Totally. Yeah. So the three pillars that I teach as a feminine wellbeing educator are fertility awareness, so natural contraception and to conceive. Is also holistic sexual wellness, and then the menstrual cycle. So cycles, definitely. And that's been a huge one. I've just finished a 5-week course called The Cycle Within, and that was teaching people how to reclaim their power and unlock their potential within their cycles, learning about the cycle. It's a complete, like, it's underrated knowing your cyclical nature. We as women are cyclical natures. We are on like a 28-day cycle, 32, however long your cycle is. Men are on 24-hour cycles. So to understand that gives you so much more like compassion and understanding in your body, and like potential power as well as a woman.
Yeah. And I love, that, as you're saying, like understanding, the more that we understand that, the easier it is to be compassionate and to be actually able to understand the dynamic of the relationships. And this is one of the things, like that I mentioned before, like I'm super interested in me as a man learning more about it, because then I can show up differently, or I can show up for women where they are. And this is something that it would be amazing, not only if women know more about themselves, but if there's an easy way of sharing and communicating and being able to be there for each other.
I just love this. Wow. Like, praise you. I hope that you start educating me on this as well. It is so amazing. What an absolute movement. Yeah, I'll settle down. So what you're saying is how so if you're in a heterosexual relationship, how you could communicate about your cycle to, yeah, okay. So I did this with my partner, and this was all new to him as well. So I can only talk from that experience. And what he made me realize is, rather than going into like, this is what estrogen's doing and this is what progesterone's doing, he's just like, give it to me simple. What do I need to do? How do I need to do it? Like, logical mind, right? The masculine logical mind. I'm so down with it. I love it. So we started exploring. For him, he made a really good point at the start, and he said a lot of education is always just around your period, right? Around that. And it's like, you're never taught the other stuff. And he was like, and in my years of being with women, it was always just about the bleeding time. And I didn't even know that there was like a whole other rest of the cycle. So how I explain it to him and to every single other woman is the seasons. And it's like every week you go through different seasons. And when I said that, I said to him, I'm in my winter phase. What do you feel like doing in the winter time? He's like, oh, I get it. And in the springtime, what do you do? Like, this is how I'm feeling. I'm starting to feel a little bit more alive and energetic and blah, blah, blah. So it's just like explaining it in the most basic way that allows your partner, so my boyfriend, to go, oh yeah, I totally get that. In summertime, I want to surf all the time. I want to be out. I'm active. There's more light in the day. I'm drinking more smoothies. I'm eating more fresh food. Well, that's how I feel right now when I'm in my ovulatory phase. That's how I feel. And he's like, okay, I get it. I totally get it. And there's times of saying, like in menstruation in the inner winter, when you kind of go into your moon cave and that's your bleeding time, a sacred time, is actually being really comfortable expressing what you need. You don't have to be ashamed of that. And like my boyfriend, when I was in my moon cave a couple of weeks ago, he comes to bed with breakfast and like a nice grounding tea and things like that. And it's just like, oh God, I love you. It's so good. So when there is that understanding and your partner is willing to show up for you, to support you in your cycle, you have a incredibly deep relationship, because it's not just love, it's like this complete understanding of yourself and your genders. And vice versa for him, where he's at and things like that. So yeah, communication is key, really key.
Yeah, and I love that aspect of being able to share it in a way that the other ones can understand, because this, I think that, as a facilitator, I need to do that all of the time, whether that is like one-on-one or with a group. It's always meeting the other where they are and trying to explain it in a way that it makes sense for them, and to be able to be like, okay, like, yes, there's all of this, as you mentioned, estrogen and like all of these different things happening, but how is that impacting my mood? How is that impacting my emotional body? And how is that impacting also the way that my interactions will go? Like, there's moments, if you're going through those cycles, there's moments that we are going to be a little bit more snappy and be like, and if the other one understands like, you're going, like, you're in that space, then we can hold that space and we can be with that. And instead of being like getting into that fight because it's just that energy. And this is, I think that this is the interesting thing of being able to have open communication, especially for relationships. Like, I'm not in a relationship now, but open communication with these things is so important, because and I'm talking from past experiences as well. There's a lot of things that we are expecting others to do without communicating, and then and then it's like, well, they didn't do that. Like, if as you're saying, like, you're in part of your cycle and you want that, like being nourished and being cuddled or whatever that is, and that one, your partner is not doing that, might get a little frustrated.
Totally.
Instead of being like, hey, like, you know, I'm going through this. Can you hold this for me?
Exactly. Totally. The imaginary, like telepathic communication that we all think happens in a relationship is fantastic. The amount of times that I have, so I also work in the capacity of sex, love, and relationships. So it's like the times that I hear a woman saying, but I just, like, how does he not know? And it's like, did you communicate that with him? How was he to know? And, you know, clients say, no, but, you know, last time he did this, and it's like, you have to be honest. You have to communicate. There is no shame in asking for what you want or need in that moment, especially if it's going to bring your relationship to a harmonious place.
Yes, beautiful. And no, I'm interested if you're able to talk a little bit more about, you know, you were talking before about when there's the bleeding, and the bleeding or the period or however we want to call it. It's for a lot of people, it's like, it is, as you were saying, the main part of the cycle, or it's what it's talked about, yet it's not even understood, or it's a little bit shameful.
Yeah.
Would you be able to explore that a little bit more? Like, what's the importance of that part, and what do you recommend women to do when they are actually bleeding?
Yeah, so the importance of it really is to allow yourself, like, we all need winter time, right? We all need winter to kind of go into that season, to recuperate, to rejuvenate ourselves, ready so that we have energy for summer again. So within your cycle, it's important to have your winter and to honor your winter in the sense that it is time to go into your cave. Think of a bear, like a bear hibernates, right? It needs to hibernate. And us as women in that time, we need to hibernate as well, because our hormones are at their lowest. Our energy is at our lowest. And it's a time, it's a sacred time. It's a time where you have this deep intuition. And it's a time where if you rest, if you honor that you can receive the most incredible gifts of intuitive knowing, of rest, of allowing yourself deep nourishment in that time. So it's an important time to give your body time to rest, give yourself permission to rest. Rest is a form of action, and I think we forget that. So it's important to connect to that time of your cycle as we do in winter. So that is why I believe that it's important. And, you know, we could go into womb wisdom and all of that stuff, why it's important as well. But yeah, as a foundation, it's important because our body needs rest. We need to connect back in so that we can be rejuvenated for the rest of our cycle. It's also a time of letting go, like physiologically we are releasing the uterine lining. It's also a time of emotionally, mentally letting go, like what are you clearing, letting go of, in that sense as well. So yeah, it's a really important time of your cycle. And then you said, what was the other question? What can we do
When we're going, I mean, when women are going through it, like what are perhaps some rituals or some practices that you recommend?
Yeah. So some rituals or practices that I would recommend. One is, and this is what I talk to women about, is resting. And that is a ritual. So many women are like, love to just go, go, go. And, you know, put your moon cup in or put your period underwear in and just like keep going. You can do anything. And, you know, we've been tricked really by these ads for women's sanitary products and tampons and pads that have advertised to us, you can just put a tampon in and keep going. You can do it all. You're Wonder Woman. And it's actually, no, that's completely wrong. Like, our body is craving rest. Can you rest? So the biggest practice and ritual that took me a while was to rest, to create in day one, if you can, spaciousness to rest. Also rituals around honoring what you're releasing. Meditation, what are you releasing? And can you sit with yourself for 5 to 10 minutes, write in your journal what you're releasing? Being in touch with nature, massive when you're in your moon time, is like connecting with nature. You're at this really sensitive phase in your cycle where, again, intuition, it means that there's the thinning of the veils between the conscious and the unconscious are at their thinnest. So it's this really sensitive, like, intuitive time. And back in the days, women would go in tribes and communities, would go together and bleed together. And there's something also called the red tent, and it was where women would go. And their wisdom in that time, what women spoke about, what came out of these times, was like golden stuff that leaders and tribesmen and kingsmen would honor, and like that was worthy. So that was back in the ancient times. Like these times were really honored, and we've just completely lost that in modern society and decided to put a tampon in and keep going. So honoring this time could look like, wearing a red nightie for those couple of days. Again, that's showing your partner how much you honor this time, which means you would appreciate him or her to honor that time as well. The more you honor yourself, the more you set that example to communicate that to your partner. So being in touch with nature, doing a meditation, release, even burning, whatever that looks like, letting go. What are you actually letting go? Journaling. Being in touch with nature. Did I say that already? Being in touch with nature. Get into nature. Journaling, taking time off social media. This is a time where you are a little bit more sensitive. You could be more emotional and more easily triggered. So taking time off social media. There's things, if you want to go into a deeper ritual, like blood ritual, where you can honor your blood back to Mother Nature. And if you think about it, there is a lot of taboo around this topic as well, is blood of the menstrual cycle. But yet this blood, it was the uterine lining that would potentially hold or house the egg for the egg to mature. So it is like the richest, densest, most nutritious part of a woman's cycle that she's releasing. So it's full of incredible nutrients as well. So honoring that back into Mother Nature. And there's also, there's art that you can do with it. If we're getting real into ritual, there's art that you can do with it. Women put it on their face. I personally haven't done this. But there's a lot of rituals and honoring that you can do around this time. Yeah.
Wow. I was just listening. I'm like trying to feel into all of these different things that you were mentioning, all of these rituals. And I was like just feeling them. Like, I was like, oh, wow. And this is the interesting thing. I think that I love that you mentioned how we used to do things in the ancient times, and now through like the race of going I don't know where in life, that everyone is rushing, and it's that, what you were saying, like it's put your moon cup or put a tampon and just keep on going. And I see a lot of times that our modern way of living, it's completely misaligned with natural cycles.
Totally.
And how can we reclaim that, in the sense of being able to communicate, like if someone is working and they need to show up to work at 9 and they are it's just they need that rest time, like how can they do that? And I this year, with the pandemic and everything that happened and more people working from home, I was like, this is enabling so many more people to listen to their bodies and to at least starting to go with their own cycles. They're able to do the work, but perhaps they're like, I'm just going to take, half an hour and just snuggle, they can have some tea
Totally.
or whatever it is. Being able to get back into it instead of grinding and grinding and grinding
Yeah.
when it's not the time for that.
Yeah. So was the question, how can we still like honor our cycle even? Yeah. Yeah. And that's a great question, because people have kids, like they have families, they have jobs that they need to go to. Not everyone has the luxury of just going, okay, day one, rest time, see you in a couple of days. It's just like, I've been in many positions where I haven't been able to do that. And what I say to that is, how can you turn down the nozzle on your day? Or how can you ask for support that can give you maybe a little bit more of a lower key day? Maybe you're not racing around and doing all the things. Can you honor yourself by talking to colleagues saying, hey, I actually can't have this finished by the end of the day. Would it be okay if I get it done in the next 5 days? And just, you don't have to say why. It's like, I'm sorry, Nigel, I'm bleeding. Like, I can't do this for 5 days. You just honor yourself in the essence of, I that's my boundary. I don't need to explain myself as a woman. If you have a partner, asking your partner, hey, I'm in a winter. Can I have a bit more support? Would you mind making dinner for the next 3 days? And I'm going to be with the kids, but I'm going to need a bit more rest in between. So instead of just expecting, it's not realistic, right? It's not realistic what I'm saying, just to be able to just like shut down the computer and get on with it. But what is realistic is, can you take a nap? Can you turn down the nozzle of your daily grind? Can you ask for extra support, either from a partner, family, friends, colleagues? Can you communicate deadlines, and can you communicate not having to have everything done on that day? And if you are practicing cycle syncing, so cycle syncing really is about those inner seasons that I was talking about. If you practice that, premenstrual, your inner autumn, is really about what are you tying up, what loose ends are you tying up before you move into your moon cave, so that you haven't got a huge list of things to do when you're in this time of rest. So it's like the end of the year, right? We're tying up these loose ends before Christmas, New Year's, so that we can be on break and fully be on break. Similar to your cycle. What can you tie up? What projects do you need to get done and finished or extended, so that you can fully integrate in your moon time?
Yeah. So many interesting things there. And I'm wondering if you're able to speak a little bit about, when it doesn't matter which part of the cycle, but for those that don't know enough about having intimate relationships or sex in the different parts of the cycle, what would you say to that?
Yeah. So do you mean just kind of like how your sexual arousal rhythms, like throughout your cycle? Yeah. Cool. So the start of your cycle, your inner winter menstruation starts on day 1 of your bleed, just to clarify that. So this is 50-50. This can be a time where women are like, rah, I'm ready. And that is purely because your uterus is a lot heavier. So it's actually weighing down on your G-spot in your vaginal canal, which is super interesting. When I found that, I was like, whoa, what the hell? And for some women, this is a time that's really challenging. So to be sexually aroused is like, back off. I don't think so. I'm in my moon cave and I'm honoring that. So for that part of the cycle, 50-50, and all dependent on how you're physically feeling, emotionally and mentally too. And then you move into your inner spring. And your inner spring is this time where you can imagine like this bear has been in his cave and he comes out, he's like, ooh, hello world. And it's kind of like that with your inner spring. You start to feel a little bit more energized, a little bit more alive, confident, you're more aligned. And yeah, you're starting to possibly crave a bit more intimacy, sex. Your arousal rhythms with estrogen, without getting too scientific, estrogen brings on that arousal So as estrogen rises after your moon, after your bleed, and this starts to bring in this hormone that's like, I call it the sexy hormone. It's like as estrogen keeps rising, the sexier you feel and the more you want sex. So in a spring, your arousal starts to rise. Then you have your ovulation, peak of summer, you're in a summer, your body's doing anything it can to make a baby, right? So it's like you're releasing special hormones, pheromones, all these things that's like trying to bring in this partner so that you can procreate. And pretty much you're at your sexiest then. Like your face goes more symmetrical at this time of your cycle. Like your hair, your skin, your nails, everything is looking fabulous so that you're just on peak performance mode for your partner of choice to fertilize your egg. So the start of your cycle is definitely a time, first half of your cycle is time where you're wanting to be a bit more intimate, aroused. For women, you can actually get turned on a lot quicker. Women take time to get aroused and warmed up, and a lot of the time our kind of sexual research is based on a male's arousal levels, and it's just not the case for women. We take time, but in this part of your cycle, you can access more pleasure quicker, given that you are honoring each phase of your cycle, right? I could be saying this and a woman hasn't rested in inner winter and she just expects to have the energy of her inner summer, and it's not going to happen. You have to do the yin to the yang. And then you come to the last part of your cycle, which is your inner autumn. And this is still a time where you could feel aroused, just not as much. And it may be that it takes you longer to get to an arousal peak, a climax. And that's because progesterone is now on the scene. Progesterone takes over, and progesterone is the yin hormone. It's the hormone that's like peace, chill out, calming, anti-anxiety hormone. So sexy hormone's gone, peace, chilled out friend has come on board. So some women, for me, this was a huge game changer. And I think it's really important to say that some women get frustrated because they say, or they think, what the hell? Last week I was on fire and I just like, I couldn't get enough. And now it's taking me a lot longer to reach that. Like something's wrong with me. And actually when you start to learn about your cycle, and I had to explain this to my partner, right? And it was like, I need more. Again, it brings in communication. I'm in this part of my cycle. I need more foreplay. I want to kiss more. I need more. I need you to talk to me. I need build up so that I can access that pleasure because I'm in this part of my cycle. So again, practicing that communication. But when you know it within your body, it's a lot easier to communicate rather than I'm broken, something's wrong with me.
Yes, that's amazing. It's so interesting, and I love the way that you explain the different parts of the cycle, because it does make it accessible for everyone to really understand. Okay, like this is the time. Like, and as you say, like if women know it and men know it, then it's easier. And I think if this would be actually education from the get-go, like from the beginning, if everyone knew this, then I think that it would be easier as well in the communication in relationships, because it wouldn't be like, you need to explain the entire thing. It's just like, hey, I'm in my winter. So like, and your partner will be like, oh, cool. They know actually what it is instead of being...
Oh my gosh. I can't wait. Let's do it. Let's make a change.
I'm like, I'm in education. I all the time talk about this. We are teaching all of these things that I'm like, all of the foundations for living, we're not teaching them. Like we are educating on all of these different things that are important, but people go out into life and they don't know this, and they are going through every week they're going through this, every day they're going through this, and yet they don't know.
Totally. And it just allows women, rather than being like, oh my God, why do I feel like this? It's so annoying. I'm just like, I'm really reactive. I'm triggered easily. And like, my partner eating an apple is like doing my head in. rather than like feeling frustrated and triggered and all these things, I simply come back to the cycle. Where am I at? Oh, I'm feeling like that. I've been stressed. I haven't ovulated yet, which means that my hormones, like I'm still in my inner summer, and it's not healthy to be in your inner summer for like 3 weeks, right? It's just should be there for a handful of days. And having that knowledge, I can then learn what I need to do so that my body feels safe enough to release an egg. Because if I'm stressed, your body goes, nope, not safe enough, don't do it, shut down systems. When I know that, I can go, right, I need to start doing more meditation. I need to do more yin yoga so that my body can then go, oh, okay, so it's safe enough to release an egg, let's do it. So essentially, you're just biohacking your cycles so you can have an incredibly healthy life within your body. You're completely working with your body.
Beautiful. And I know that we could be talking like for days and days, and this is what you do all of the time. So, but I just want to bring this episode to towards an end with the last few questions. My first question is, what is one resource that you would recommend?
Yeah, so a woman who really changed a lot for me 4 years ago, maybe 3 actually, and I started reading her book, was Woman Code by Elisa Vedi. And Elisa Vedi is, to me, the creme de la creme of the menstrual cycle. She created the term cycle syncing. So that is a fantastic resource to start there, Woman Code. And also she has another book in the flow. So yeah.
Cool. And if you have only one tip to give someone, what would that tip be?
Listen to your body. You know, it's true. There is something called body wisdom. Listen to your gut, listen to your intuition. And when your body's asking for something like rest, give your body rest. If it's asking to play, invite play into your life. Listen to your body.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, and you mentioned briefly, but we didn't go into it. I think that especially for women, connecting to that wisdom from the womb, actually, it's so powerful. And I think that, you know, like we would need another episode or go to one of Melissa's workshops, and learn about that, because that's huge, and there's so much wisdom there. So that's incredible. From a personal standpoint, what has been your latest small act of kindness?
Yeah, well, you know, this is just like a personal thing. And behind me lives an 80-year-old woman, maybe even older, and she refuses to go into a retirement home. So she's on her own. And my small act of kindness is cleaning her windows and inviting her, or creating an evening for Christmas lunch. So it's just like looking after elderly. I love old people. They just really have so much to give and share. So my small act of kindness has been that. Yeah.
Beautiful. And lastly, what is the one thing that you wish everyone in the world knew?
Gosh, I just come back to awareness within your body. That if you have a tiny inch of awareness in your body, and that started for me doing that first yoga training 5 years ago, I started with body awareness. And where that's led me to, if everyone had a tiny bit of body awareness, I just think the world would be a more connected place.
Yes, beautiful. I so resonate with that. For me, everything is starting from within and getting a little bit aligned with, like, we live so much in our heads, and aligning all of the aspects of our body, our energy, our physical, our mental, our spiritual, like all of the different layers of who we are, and coming back to that reconnection with the body, especially around these times that there's so much stress, so much upheaval, so much stuff going on. Like, as I say, return to that wisdom.
Yeah, the body knows.
Beautiful. And How can people find you and work with you? Where do they go?
Yeah, so if you want lots of free information and education, you can go to my Instagram handle, which is at Melissa Vranjes. I'm sure you'll pop that in the show notes. And then my website is currently under a little bit of construction, but I will be releasing a very sexy new website in January next year. And that will have a ton of resources and information and education. So yeah, pop over to my Instagram and that'll be the hub.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Melissa, for taking the time to be here with us. Thank you for everyone listening. And I would love to know if you learned something new, if this is something that you didn't know about, or if this is something that you actually knew a little bit, but you learned a new way of connecting with yourself. I would love if you are listening to this and can share in the comments what's your experience with this, what resonates with you. I would love to know that, yes. Thank you so much, Melissa, for being here and for what you're doing.
Yes, and you, Ryan, honestly, like I said, this is the first interview I've had from a male, and I just want to acknowledge that and really celebrate you for stepping into the light to understand women's physiology. It's just amazing. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.
What did you like the most about this episode? Take a moment to think about what change you can make in your life today.
Share your conscious action on social media using #ConsciousAction and tagging @ConsciousActionNZ so we can celebrate your impact on the world and create a ripple effect.
One easy action we would love for you to take right now is to share, like, and subscribe to this podcast. This will help us get these messages out into the world and inspire more people to take conscious action in their own lives, contributing to the better world we hope for.